Welcome again to Choose Your Master, God or Money. We're in episode 5. We're going to be talking about planning. Now, going back to my situation, my plan was to be rich by the time I was 30 years old. What a fool. What idolatry. My idol was money. For others, it can be tied to entertainment, materialism, greed, entitlement, or really anything that is money related or money dependent. In the previous episode, I talked about how we got into debt, and the situation was pretty hopeless. But little did we know at the time that God was using that entire situation to bring us to Him. In our mid-30s, my wife and I were converted. Our money goals were smashed, and we didn't even care about them anymore. We had closed businesses. We had the $300,000 in unsecured debt. And we planned to do things God's way and began to look forward to see what God might do. We sold our home. We moved in with our parents. It was very humbling. And then the bills rolled in every month, and I would sit them there at the end of the table and just dread going into them, looking at what we owed and trying to figure out how we could possibly pay them. By the way, I do know some people actually refuse to open the mail. Like somehow, if you don't open it and see it, you don't have to pay it. Please, if you're in that kind of mindset, that needs to stop. Your creditors have to be dealt with. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, with shaking hands, I called every one of those creditors. And the Lord blessed those phone calls, blessed those requests, and made a way for us, made a plan for us to work our way out of debt over many years. As part of being a wise and faithful steward, you must have a plan, and the plan must be a joint plan between husband and wife. Why? Two different perspectives, two different pushes and pulls on various decisions. One of the things that you need to be aware of is falling into an imbalance in your life on things related to money. So you must be communicating with each other at all times. If you do not give the time and effort to do that, and things do not go well, your spouse may hold their anger and frustration in, but eventually they will become bitter toward you. Now let's talk for a minute about some planning-related statistics that are out there. Stats on how many people will live at the poverty level because they have little or no savings and they are dependent on Social Security. By the way, will there even be Social Security when it comes time for you to retire? That's an open question. But here's a couple of things. According to the U.S. Census Bureau data, 50% of women and 47% of men between the ages of 55 and 66 have no retirement savings. Next, 32% of working-age Americans, which is about 58 million people, have no retirement savings, according to a recent analysis by the Penny Hoarder. Younger workers had the lowest savings rate, with nearly half of working-age adults in their 20s having no savings. Clearly, the good steward needs to have a plan. And by the way, another major concern for the Christian is whether or not your plans explicitly or implicitly reveal that you're presuming that God agrees with your plan and will make it happen. Now, God hates that kind of attitude because it ignores the fact that He is sovereign over every molecule in the universe. And it is Him, and only Him, who decides what will and will not happen. So in essence, a person who is making plans without a proper understanding of God's involvement is putting themselves in the place of God. Listen to James, writing in James chapter 4. It says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil." Boasting is born out of pride, and God hates pride. Earlier in James 4:6, God says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So bottom line, we need to plan, but we need to plan with the Lord's will in mind. Whatever your plan is, check it against biblical principles and make sure it is not out of line with the Lord. And at the same time, continue to pray that God will give you wisdom. Plans can change. Plans can be moved in this direction or that direction. And you need to have that always before the Lord and not making assumptions that He will bless whatever your plan is. So let's go ahead and review some things that you must do in your planning. The first thing, and the thing that so many people refuse to do, is create a budget. How will you know how to make a plan? How will your plan be legitimate if you don't even know what you're planning to spend and what your expenses are? There are many tools available these days, many pieces of software you can use that will help you do this. If you like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, they're great also if you know how to use them. But whatever you do, get a hold of the knowledge of how much you spend and how much you plan to spend. Whatever system you use, you must get a hold of how much money goes out of your household every month for all items, and you must compare that to the income that you have and make the appropriate decisions and make the appropriate plans. Secondly, let's talk about debt. Most of us have credit card debt. That's probably the worst kind of debt. And what I would suggest is to eat it like an elephant. That is, one bite at a time. I would suggest that you take the most expensive credit card debt that you have, the one with the highest rate on it, and make that your first target to pay that off. As much as you can put toward that on a monthly basis, do so. When you finish that up, move to the next one and begin to go through the same process until you eliminate each card's balance. Number 3, debt constrains us for giving to the kingdom, tithing, if you will. We tithed in the middle of all of what we went through, and the Lord provided. It's hard for me to explain how that actually worked, but if you choose to tithe and to give to the Lord, even though you're in financial trouble, you're having a very difficult time making ends meet, you will make ends meet, and you will be able to tithe. The Lord will make that happen. Number 4, you must have a will. It's so inexpensive to get this done. Have an attorney write up a will written for you and your spouse. If you presently have few assets and your financial situation is not complicated, it might cost you about $300 to get this done. You can even get a simple will done by using an online service. If a spouse dies without a will, in Georgia, for instance, the state of Georgia gets involved and makes final decisions about who gets what. And on top of that, it might take 12 to 18 months to finish the process. Nightmare. So please, this is another one of those things that people neglect so often. Today, make a phone call, get an appointment, get a will done. Number 5, begin an outline of how you see your retirement. Now, this may seem foolish to you if you're in your 20s, but it is still a valuable discussion to begin to align your joint point of view and eventual goals that need to be set. If at all possible, open an IRA account. IRAs are one of the greatest opportunities for families to get an early start on saving for the later years. Number 6, insurance is a big part of wise stewardship. Another one of those things that people don't want to talk about. Life insurance for both husband and wife, disability insurance, homeowners insurance, and car insurance should be reviewed by both spouses. Now, if you've never taken the time to do this, you might be surprised to learn things like you have no coverage for, like mold in your home or little coverage for jewelry, no coverage on your car insurance for anything that you own in your car, no earthquake coverage or flood coverage for your home, and more. I suggest that you take high deductibles on your auto and home insurance. It'll keep the premiums down. Yes, you won't be able to put in those little small claims, but you shouldn't do that anyway. That's not really what insurance is for. And then as far as life insurance is concerned, I want to say again, I'm not a financial advisor by training, but I have always believed that term life insurance is what you should buy to protect the husband and wife from an untimely death. Term life insurance gives you nothing back unless the person who's insured dies. Therefore, it is also the least expensive kind of life insurance. These days, you could probably buy $500,000 of coverage, $1 million of coverage for a surprisingly low premium if you're in your 20s, 30s, or even early 40s. So that's all I had on planning. Folks, please, you've got to plan. It's another thing that people put off. And then when disaster hits, it's just a sad, sad situation. Thanks for listening in again, and I will see you in the next episode.